Giveon dropped his second studio album title called Beloved. And like you said before, I really like from back in the day, like since we started physically collecting CDs or vinyls or whatever you want to call it, where like it was just a limited number of songs and you're not really going over the top because like as a human society, I just feel like our brains are just getting worse and worse. So like attention spans for a multitude of songs is just nasty work. But to have 14 songs that only go on for about 30 to 40 minutes, I thought was very well done. I think for Giveon, like I'm a fan of Giveon. And I feel like for me personally, I feel like this was his like he's had good bodies of work, but for me personally, I felt like this was him like finally like evolving his mature coming out party as well too. So I think this was his arrival album compared to his EP and then his first album, Give or Take as well too. And you know the album it was centered around like I said before, I always say introspective storytelling. Gives into his reflections on love, regret, and self growth as well too. And I like the style because for me, I wrote down notes where it feels like is vintage meets modern day R&B. And I feel
Mhm.
like this is a good depiction of R&B compared to what we just talked about with like Justin Bieber and other artists as well too. So you can definitely hear some inspirations drawn from older artists like Teddy P or like Marvin Gaye as well too. And I was watching one of his interviews, and he was saying with this album in general, not only did it take obviously a long time to make, but it's meant to be played live, which makes sense because when he said he was recording it, it was more of a live jam session that helped shape the sound, which moves away from 99% of this music that we hear now is just loop based production, which I can really appreciate, especially if I'm playing it in the car with my headphones or at the crib as well too. So I think that it kind of enhanced the emotional authenticity to the project itself as well too. Some standout tracks that I like was track one Mud, and for me especially like with my bread and butter being R&B, I mean even in any general, even any album in general, but more so kind of sticking R&B. I'm very huge, so huge even with all the playlists I make. I'm very huge on intro tracks. Like intro track, I like intro tracks that ease you into the album, and I like how he delivered it.
Mhm.
And it kind of set the tone for what to expect. So obviously with Mud, he's addressing public slander and heartbreak. Other songs I like, I Can Tell, Bleeding, which kind of navigate the themes of yearning and emotional vulnerability, capturing relationship complexities as well too. And for me, being as old as I am, it's always good to like, not good, but like now that I'm older and I've experienced a lot of, if you want to call relationships, situationship, flings and whatnot, it's cool to like not only listen to this album, but go back and listen to more classic albums. And I can find every song to an extent of where I can relate to and plug myself back into like a past situation or whatever as well too. So I think it shines because he comes off as being very, I say, emotionally honest and intelligent and very cohesive. And like I said, I feel like this was his most cohesive album. And to me personally, like I'm a little biased, I'm not gonna lie. I felt like now obviously you have like hit singles. Like I feel like artists now either they'll have a hit single or they'll just promote they're dropping an album and then just drop the album. And obviously with him, he dropped like two singles as well too. And it's human nature when you drop singles like that, since that's been the songs that have been overplayed, you're more likely to kind of skip them. But I mean, outside of that, it blends well, and to me, it's very non-skippy from start to finish as well too. And I feel like fast forwarding into time, I think is going to end up that's going to be something that's timeless. And for me, I think he got into his vocal mastery bag. He has a unique like baritone voice, and his delivery just feels like more refined. So I gave this a 9 out of 10. But what were your thoughts?
Um, I think this is a huge improvement over his last album. I don't think his last album stood out at all to me, or honestly to a lot of other people. Um, I agree. This does feel it felt more timeless. It felt more like him using his voice to his advantage, if that makes sense. So he has
Yeah.
like an old-timey-ish voice, so like make
Hmm.
music that really fit that and fit him and music that you could really feel.
Hmm.
I want to say I think my favorite song was Backup Plan. Uh,
Oh, that shit hit too.
yeah, that one re went really crazy, but the whole listen, like I put it on when I was cooking, and it was smooth pretty much the whole way through,
Smooth. Hmm.
which is not a given nowadays with a lot of people, a lot of very popular people's albums. So I like him, it feels like a triumphant return for him. Hopefully this carries over and, gives him some type of momentum to keep putting out, more projects because I feel like he's one of those artists now where we have so many artists. So it takes a lot to really separate yourself to be a timeless act, like you go
Hmm.
down as like a
That's
guy who just put
facts.
out some good albums, versus like, are they really going to be talking about you in certain conversations in like 10, 15, 20 years? So
Facts.
I think this can be one of those things to help him really get on that trajectory, and he has to just continue it.